Hey guys, tonight you find yourself standing barefoot on cold, uneven stone, the chill of it creeping up through your bones as if the ground itself has opinions about your life choices. The air is damp and faintly sour with the scent of wet linen and old soap, the kind made from ashes and patience rather than anything you would willingly put near your skin in another lifetime. Somewhere above you, in the dark rafters of the wash-house, smoke from last night's fire still lingers, caught in the beams like a reluctant guest who has overstayed their welcome. You blink slowly, adjusting to the dimness. A thin grey light presses in through a narrow slit window, the sort that promises daylight but does not yet deliver warmth. Outside, you can just make out the low murmur of the river and the distant toll of a bell, one of the monastery bells that mark the hours whether anyone feels ready for them or not. It rings with a steady, unbothered certainty, as if to say that time moves forward regardless of damp socks or aching limbs. Around you, heaps of linen lie in uneven mounds, coarse shirts, woolen undergarments, long sheets stiff with use, and tablecloths that have seen better and cleaner days. You reach out and touch one, and your fingers come away slightly stiff, the fabric heavy with dried sweat and the faint memory of smoke. Medieval travel brochures, if such a thing existed, really oversold this experience. You shift your weight and immediately regret it, because the rushes strewn across the floor, old reeds meant to soften the stone, have long since lost their softness and now serve mostly as a damp, scratchy reminder that comfort is a flexible concept here. Somewhere nearby, a rat scurries with quiet determination, and you decide not to investigate further. There are some mysteries best left to the professionals. You draw your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It smells faintly of wet wool and wood smoke, a scent that will likely follow you for the rest of your days here. It is not unpleasant, exactly, but it is persistent in a way that suggests it has no intention of ever leaving. You rub your hands together, trying to coax warmth into your fingers, and notice how the skin is already rough, the beginnings of small cracks forming from cold water and hard work. You probably would not last a week out here. Still, there is something quietly steady about it all. The stillness before the day begins, the sense that everything, every bucket, every stone, every worn wooden beam has settled into its place and will remain there long after you have finished your work. It is not comfort, exactly, but it is something close to it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, you might as well let me know where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Somewhere, someone else is probably just waking up too, though hopefully to something a bit warmer than this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take a slow breath, tasting the faint ash in the air, and step deeper into the wash-house as the day begins to stir around you. The first sound is the creak of a wooden door, followed by the soft shuffle of feet. Another worker enters, wrapped in a thick woolen shawl, her hair tucked beneath a simple cloth. She nods to you in passing, not unfriendly, just practical. Words are a luxury in these early hours, and neither of you seems eager to spend them. You follow her toward a long, low table where bundles of linen have been sorted, or at least stacked in a way that suggests someone once had a system. You begin to separate them, your fingers moving slowly at first, learning the textures, coarse for the field hands, slightly finer for the household servants, and then, rarely, a piece so soft and carefully woven that it can only belong to someone higher up the chain of comfort. No one can quite agree whether the finest linens truly make a person cleaner, or simply make them feel more important while being just as dirty as the rest. You lift one such piece carefully. It is lighter than the others, almost airy, and for a moment you imagine the life it comes from warm chambers, beeswax candles burning late into the night, hands that have never known the sting of the lie. Then you set it aside with the rest, because imagining is not part of the work, and the pile in front of you is not getting any smaller. A wooden bucket is pressed into your hands, still damp from yesterday's use. You carry it across the room to a large stone basin where water has been drawn from the river and left to settle overnight. A thin film of something you choose not to identify floats on the surface, and you gently push it aside before dipping the bucket in. The water is cold enough to make your fingers ache instantly, a sharp, clean pain that somehow feels both alarming and expected. You fill the bucket and carry it back, careful not to spill too much along the way. The stone floor is already slick in places, and a fall here would not be a dramatic moment, just a quiet, inconvenient one followed by more work. Nearby, a small fire is coaxed back to life. Someone kneels beside it, feeding in thin pieces of kindling, blowing gently until the embers glow brighter. Soon, a low flame takes hold, and the room begins to fill with a faint, comforting warmth that never quite reaches the corners. You pour the water into a waiting tub and begin the slow process of soaking the first batch of linen. The fabric darkens as it absorbs the water, becoming heavier, more honest in its weight. You press it down with your hands, watching the surface ripple and settle. Some swear that the first water of the day holds a kind of quiet blessing, especially if drawn before the second bell. Others insist it makes no difference at all, that dirt is dirt and only effort will remove it. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such beliefs matter, or if they simply make the work feel less endless. You work in silence for a while, listening to the small sounds around you, the crackle of the fire, the soft splash of water, the occasional cough from someone who has breathed in too much smoke over too many years. Outside, the light grows slowly stronger, though it remains pale and distant, as if unsure it wants to be part of this day either. As the first tub fills, you reach for a wooden paddle, worn smooth by countless hands before yours. You begin to stir the linen, pushing and turning it, letting the water seep into every fold. It is not difficult work, but it is steady, and it asks for your full attention in a quiet, unhurried way. Time here does not rush. It stretches, settles, and loops back on itself like the river just beyond the walls. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, twice, and then falls silent. You make a mental note of it without knowing why. In a place like this, small details have a way of returning later, like half-remembered dreams. You pause for a moment, straightening your back and flexing your fingers. The day has only just begun, and already it feels as though you've been awake for hours. The second bell will come soon, and with it, more water, more linen, more of the same slow rhythm that carries you from one moment to the next. You glance once more at the growing piles, the rising steam, the dim light creeping across the stone floor. There is no grand beginning here, no sudden shift, just the quiet certainty that the work will continue, as it always has, and as it always will. And so you take another breath, dip your hands back into the cold water, and continue. You lift the first soaked bundle from the tub, and it comes up heavy as a sleeping child, dripping steadily onto the stone floor. Cold water runs along your wrists and disappears beneath your sleeves, where it begins its long and unnecessary journey toward your elbows. You do not complain. Everyone here has wet sleeves. Wet sleeves are almost a badge of office, though not one anyone would request from a herald. The woman beside you twists her own bundle with practiced strength, wringing it until the linen groans softly in her hands. She nods toward the door, and you understand. The river is waiting. You gather the damp cloth into a wicker basket, the reeds creaking under the weight. The basket's handles bite into your palms as you follow the others outside into the grey morning. The yard is still half dark, hemmed in by rough stone walls and timber sheds. A cart leans near the stable with one wheel slightly crooked, as if it has given up on ambition. From somewhere behind the bakehouse comes the warm, yeasty smell of bread, which feels almost cruel when your stomach is empty and your hands are numb. Mist lies low over the ground. It clings to the yard, the well, the wooden posts, the sleeping barrels, and the backs of the hens that wander too close to the laundry path. Your boots sink into the mud with a soft sucking sound. Each step is careful, because a fall with a full laundry basket would be remembered by everyone for months, and possibly turned into a song by the stable boys, who are not known for kindness in art. You pass beneath a small archway and follow a narrow track toward the river. Rushes grow thick along the bank, their tips silvered with dew. Beyond them, the water moves in a slow dark band, carrying leaves, twigs, and secrets from places upriver. No one can quite agree whether this river is older than the abbey, older than the town, or older than good sense itself, but everyone agrees it is cold. The washerwomen gather at the stones where the bank slopes low and flat. Some are already there, skirts pinned up, sleeves tied, wooden paddles tucked under their arms. One old woman has wrapped her head in a faded red cloth and stands like a small, stern saint of wet linen. She glances at you, then at your basket, then back at the river, which appears to be the full extent of your welcome. You lower your basket beside a broad washing stone, worn smooth by generations of beating, rubbing, and rinsing. The stone is dark with water, flecked with pale grit, and cold enough that when your hand rests on it, you feel the chill through your skin. You kneel carefully, placing one knee on a twist of old sacking. It does very little to soften the ground, but it allows you to pretend. The first linen cloth slides into the river with a soft slap. You grip it firmly before the current can pull it away. There are stories, of course, of garments stolen by river spirits, though most people quietly suspect careless hands and strong water are more common culprits. Still, some swear that if a shirt vanishes before sunrise, the river has taken offence at the wearer. This seems unfair to shirts, but medieval rivers are not often asked to explain themselves. You plunge the cloth beneath the surface and begin to rub it against the stone. Back and forth, fold and press, lift and plunge. The motion is simple, and after a while it begins to settle into your body. Water splashes your cheeks. Your breath comes out in pale clouds. Around you, the others work in the same rhythm, each woman bent over her stone, each basket beside her, each pair of hands reddening in the cold. The river bank slowly fills with sound. Cloth slaps stone, wooden paddles strike wet linen with flat, echoing cracks. Someone coughs, someone mutters a prayer to St. Clair, though whether for clean cloth, warm hands, or patience with noble households is not specified. A young servant laughs under her breath as another tells a story about a knight who wore the same undertunic through Lent and called it discipline. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the tale is true, but everyone seems willing to believe it. You smile faintly and keep working. A dog appears near the rushes, the same one you heard earlier. Perhaps it is lean, brown and mud-legged, with one ear bent sideways as if caught in permanent doubt. It watches the laundry with deep seriousness, then trots to your basket and sniffs at the damp linen. You shoo it gently. It backs away 2 steps, sits down, and continues supervising. This, apparently, is now its employment. Mist curls around the river stones, across the water. Fields lie pale and flattened beneath the morning, their furrows dark with frost and old rain. A few figures move in the distance, cloaks drawn tight, heading toward the town gate or the abbey road. One carries a staff hung with pilgrim badges that glint faintly in the weak light, little tokens of distant shrines, stamped in cheap metal, proof that someone has walked far enough to deserve sore feet and a story. You rinse the cloth again, watching cloudy water trail away from it and vanish downstream. The old woman in the red headcloth clicks her tongue and shows you how to twist the linen without tearing the seams. You copy her slowly. She corrects the angle of your hands, then nods once, as though you have passed a test too small to celebrate but large enough to matter. The basket gradually changes. The dirty bundle shrinks. The rinsed pile grows heavier. Your hands lose some feeling, then find a new kind of ache beneath the numbness. The work is not dramatic. It is not heroic. No bard will sing of you kneeling beside a river with wet cuffs and a stubborn dog watching from the reeds. Yet there is a strange dignity in the repetition, in the way each cloth passes through your hands and leaves them a little cleaner than it arrived. A bell rings from the abbey, faint through the fog. The others pause only for a breath, crossing themselves or bowing their heads before returning to the stones. Time is not owned by clocks here. It is wrung from towers, measured in hunger, marked by light, and felt in the back, the wrists, the knees. You lift another shirt, coarse and patched under one arm. Someone has mended it with thread darker than the cloth, and the stitches march unevenly across the fabric like tiny pilgrims losing their way. You rub carefully around them, mindful not to pull the repair loose. Clothing here lives many lives. A sheet may become a smaller sheet, then a child's wrap, then cleaning rags, then kindling if desperate enough. Nothing is merely thrown away. Even worn cloth has duties left. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether washerwomen know more secrets than priests, but as you handle each garment, you begin to understand the rumour. Linen remembers. It carries smoke from halls, sweat from journeys, herbs from sick rooms, crumbs from feasts, and the faint perfume of those who can afford perfume. Every stain is a whisper, and every tear a small confession. By the time the mist begins to thin, the river stones gleam wet around you, and your basket is full again, not lighter. Exactly, but changed. The cloth smells of river water now, sharp and clean beneath the older scents. You stand slowly, knees stiff, and lift the basket with both hands. The dog rises too, as if appointed to escort you. You turn back toward the wash-house, boots sinking into the muddy path, fingers aching, breath soft in the cold air. Behind you, the river keeps moving, carrying away loosened dirt, whispered jokes, and whatever small weariness the morning has already given up. Ahead, smoke lifts from the wash-house roof, and the next part of the work waits in the warmth of ash, lye, and boiling water. You return to the wash-house with the river still clinging to you, not only in the damp hems of your clothes and the ache in your hands, but in that sharp mineral smell that seems to settle behind your teeth. The basket rides against your hip, heavy and stubborn, and each step across the yard feels like an agreement between your tired legs and the mud beneath them. Neither side is pleased, but both continue. The brown dog follows at a respectful distance, paws dark with wet earth, nose lifted as if he's been assigned to inspect the morning air for faults. He pauses beside the crooked cart with the weary wheel, sniffs it once, and apparently finds the cart guilty of something. Then he trots after you again. At the wash-house door, warmth breathes out to meet you. Not true warmth, not the soft bed and fur-lined cloak kind, but a smoky, working warmth made of embers, damp wool, and steam rising from old stones. You duck inside, and the world narrows again to low rafters, crowded tubs, hanging cloth, and the red glow of the fire under the great blackened cauldron. Now comes the part of the day that seems almost like kitchen work, except no one is happy about tasting the results. Ash has been gathered from the hearths, sifted and kept dry in a wooden bin near the wall. Not just any ash will do, the older women say. Hardwood ash is best, especially from beech or oak, though no one can quite agree whether oak cleans better because of its nature, its strength, or because people simply enjoy praising oak for everything. In this world, oak is expected to hold up doors, beams, chests, ships, saints' shrines, and apparently moral standards. You set down your basket and kneel beside the ash bin. The ash is pale grey and soft, almost silky when you touch it, though it hides little black flecks that cling under your nails. You scoop it into a smaller tub, careful not to breathe too deeply as a faint powder lifts into the air. It smells of yesterday's fires, of bread ovens and supper smoke, of chambers where people warmed their feet before sleep. Now those fires will wash shirts. Nothing in this place has only one life. A woman named Eleanor, at least you think that is her name, though everyone says it differently depending on how tired they are, shows you how to pour hot water through the ashes. Slowly, she warns. Too fast, and you waste the strength of it. Too much ash, and the lye bites the cloth. Too little, and you may as well be rinsing linen with polite wishes. The water darkens as it seeps through, taking on a strange, slippery sharpness. This is lye, the hidden force of the laundry yard, and you quickly learn to respect it. It is not friendly, it is useful, which in medieval life is often considered better. You dip a wooden ladle into the liquid and pour it over the waiting linen. Steam rises, carrying a bitter scent that makes your nose prickle. Your eyes water slightly. You blink and pretend this is wisdom entering the body by force. Around you. The others move with practiced caution, sleeves tied high, hands roughened by years of cold water and caustic wash. Some have little cracks at the knuckles, rubbed with goose grease or mallow salve when they can get it. Some swear that rubbing the hand with warm sheep fat before work keeps the lye from biting too deeply. Others say it only makes you smell like an ambitious stew. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the remedy works, but plenty use it anyway. Near the fire, bundles of soapwort have been laid out on a board, greenish stems, pale roots, and small leaves dried from the warmer months. The plant is humble-looking, not at all like something that could make water foam, but when crushed and steeped, it gives a gentle suds. You take a handful and rub it between your palms. A faint, clean scent rises from it, grassy and mild beneath the smoke. There is also a lump of harder soap wrapped in cloth and guarded more carefully than you expect. It has come, someone says, through merchants who passed by way of the coast, and contains tallow and ash and perhaps olive oil, though that last part is repeated in a tone usually reserved for miracles and foreign lies. It is not for common shirts. It is for finer linen, altar cloths, and the sort of household napery that must impress guests who pretend not to notice stains while absolutely noticing stains. You begin with the coarser things. The linen is placed in a deep wooden tub, layered with care, then soaked with lye water and hot water from the cauldron. You press it down with the paddle, turning it slowly. The steam wraps around your face and beads along your brow. Beneath the rising heat, your feet remain cold. Medieval comfort often arrives in separate pieces and refuses to assemble itself properly. Eleanor shows you how to lift a corner of cloth and test it between your fingers, rubbing gently to loosen dirt without wearing the weave thin. You learn to pay attention to seams, cuffs, underarms, collars. These are the stubborn places where the body leaves its mark. Sweat and smoke cling there. Grease hides there. The day's labour collects there like gossip in an alehouse. A younger girl brings more water from the yard, sloshing half of it onto her shoes. No one scolds her. The floor is already wet enough to qualify as a minor pond. The brown dog has stationed himself just inside the doorway and is watching the cauldron with deep suspicion. Perhaps he thinks it contains breakfast. Perhaps he knows better. A bell rings again, nearer now in feeling though not in distance, and the sound trembles through the rafters. For a moment, everyone's movements slow. One woman murmurs a prayer under her breath. Another touches a small charm tied at her belt, a pierced coin, a scrap of blue thread, and a tiny folded bit of parchment said to bear the name of a saint. Some swear that washing on certain feast days brings bad luck unless the first cloth is rinsed 3 times and turned toward the east. Others say that if work waited for every saint, no one in Christendom would have clean sleeves. You keep your hands moving as the lye water grows cloudy. You lift each piece, rub, fold, press, soak, and pass it along. The rhythm is different from the river. There. The work was wide and cold, open to mist and fields. Here it is close and hot, full of breath and smoke and the soft slap of cloth against wood. Your body begins to understand the sequence before your mind does. Reach, turn, press, rinse. Reach, turn, press, rinse. A small shirt, perhaps from a kitchen boy or a page, appears in the tub, patched at the shoulder and stained with something dark near the hem. You rub at it carefully with soapwort and warm water. The stain fades but does not vanish. Not everything can be returned to whiteness. That, too, seems to be part of the lesson. No one can quite agree whether truly white linen is a sign of virtue, wealth, vanity, or merely access to enough servants. You suspect the last answer has been unfairly neglected by moral philosophers. The fire snaps under the cauldron. Smoke twists upward and finds every gap in the roof, except the one intended for it. Your eyes sting again. Nearby, the old woman in the red headcloth begins humming a tune with no clear beginning or end. It winds through the wash-house like thread through cloth, and gradually another voice joins, then another. The song is not loud. It hardly rises above the steam. It speaks of a road, a lost glove, a winter bride, and a crow who knows too much. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the crow is a warning or a witness, but the melody is soft enough to make either possibility bearable. You continue working until your hands redden and your shoulders loosen into the task. The linen shifts from sour to sharp, from body-worn to ash-clean. Piece by piece, it is lifted from the lye and set aside for rinsing again later. Nothing is finished in one motion here. Cleanliness is not an event, it is a procession. At last, Eleanor lets you step back from the tub. Steam curls around your sleeves. Your apron clings damply to your knees. The half-burned candle near the shelf, forgotten from the early dark, has softened at one side but not yet gone out. Its small flame wavers bravely in the thick air, looking almost as tired as you feel. Outside, The light has strengthened into a pale morning, and somewhere beyond the yard, the castle waits with its own mountain of linen, napery, shirts, sheets, and tablecloths that have survived noble meals, muddy boots, and the confidence of men who eat sauces while wearing pale sleeves. You lift your basket once more, now filled with cloth that smells of ash, soapwood, and hot water, and you follow the others toward the service court, where the true heap of the day is said to be waiting. The dog rises too, because apparently he's promoted himself. You step out from the wash house into the strengthening morning with your basket braced against your hip, and the air feels different after the steam, cooler, wider, almost thin. Smoke trails from low roofs, hens scratch near the stable wall, and somewhere a groom curses very softly at a horse that seems to have made a private enemy of him. The brown dog trots beside you with the solemn air of a bailiff inspecting village boundaries, though his authority appears to extend mainly to puddles. Ahead lies the castle service court, not the grand entrance with banners and carved stone saints watching over visitors, but the working side, where the world's fine appearances are kept alive by people with sore backs. You follow the muddy path past the bakehouse, past a stack of firewood under a sagging lean-to, past barrels hooped with iron and a row of pegged cloaks steaming faintly in the weak light. Above you, the keep rises dark and solid, its walls damp from night mist, its narrow windows looking less like eyes than thoughts no one wishes to explain. The gate into the service court stands open. An iron key hangs from the belt of the porter, a round-faced man wrapped in a fur-lined cloak that has seen better winters and possibly better men. He nods as you pass, then eyes the dog. "That yours?" he asks. You glance down. The dog looks up at you as if deeply interested in the answer. For the moment, someone says behind you, and that seems legally sufficient. Inside the court, the castle wakes in layers. A kitchen boy carries a bundle of leeks with the seriousness of a priest bearing relics. Two maids hurry past with empty trenchers stacked against their chests. A man with flour on one sleeve argues with another man holding a goose, and although the conversation appears intense, you decide not to become involved. Medieval mornings offer many invitations to confusion, and wisdom lies in declining most of them. Then you see the linen heap. It waits beneath a timber awning beside the laundry shed, piled in baskets, sacks, and loose mounds that spill over one another like snowdrifts with a grudge. Sheets from guest chambers, shirts from guards, aprons from kitchens, towels from the buttery, napkins, cloths, wraps, veils, altar linens set aside with more care, and tablecloths marked by sauces, candle grease, wine, ale, meat broth, and whatever happens when important people laugh too hard near gravy. No one can quite agree whether castle folk are dirtier than village folk, or merely own enough cloth to leave better evidence. You set your basket down, and the mound before you seems to grow while you look at it. A woman with a narrow face and sleeves rolled to the elbow steps from the shed, carrying a tally stick notched with marks. She is called Maud, and you understand at once that Maud does not believe in wasted motion, wasted water, or wasted excuses. She glances over the heap, then at you, then at the others. Guest linen first, kitchen cloth separate, lord's shirts to the side, chapel cloth untouched until I say. Her voice is quiet, but it lands like a dropped stone. You begin sorting. The guest sheets are large and awkward, smelling of sleep, hearth smoke, and lavender strewn in chests to keep moths away. Some households tuck dried rosemary or southernwood among linens too, not only for a scent, but because some swear the herbs discourage fleas, bad dreams, and unwelcome spirits who apparently dislike tidy storage. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the spirits mind rosemary, but the fleas seem unimpressed by theology. You lift a sheet and shake it loose with another worker. Dust rises. A feather drifts out and turns slowly in the air before settling on the dog's nose. He sneezes, offended by luxury. Beside you, Eleanor sorts shirts by rank without needing to be told. The finer ones are linen, soft from use but closely woven. With small stitches at the cuffs, the rougher garments belong to guards and stable hands, and these carry a stronger history of the body sweat. Leather, horse, rain, smoke, iron, and long hours standing where wind finds every gap in the wall. You press one between your hands and feel how the fabric has thinned near the shoulder. It will need mending before too many washes take the last strength from it. The tablecloths are the true trial. One is stained with dark wine in a spreading bloom. Another bears yellow streaks of mustard. A third has candle wax hardened along one edge. Maud picks it up, frowns, and mutters something about people who cannot keep candles upright after 2 cups of ale. This is less a complaint than a seasonal observation. You scrape cooled wax carefully with the back of a knife. It flakes away in pale curls. Grease marks are dusted with fine ash before washing, because ash drinks oil better than water alone. For stubborn stains, some use stale urine, left to grow strong in covered pots until it becomes sharp enough to bite through grease. This is mentioned almost casually, as if discussing the weather. You accept the information with what dignity remains to you and decide that the past contains many reasons to be humble. A kitchen maid hurries over with another armful of cloths. These too, she says. Maud looks at the pile. From when last night? What happened last night? The maid hesitates. A pie. No one asks further. Some disasters explain themselves better in silence. The work continues under the awning. Sort, shake, scrape, fold, separate. Fine linen here, coarse cloth there. Bloodless stains from food and wax in one pile. Stronger household dirt in another. Chapel linen apart, guarded by custom and fear of doing something wrong in front of God and Maud. Not necessarily in that order. A small cloth embroidered at the corner with a cross is placed on a clean board. It may have covered a chalice, or perhaps lay beneath a reliquary in the chapel. Some swear the castle keeps a saint's finger bone in a little silver case, though those who tell the tale never fully agree whether it is truly a saint, a very old chicken bone, or something acquired from a merchant with excellent confidence. Still, no one handles the cloth carelessly. In this world, uncertainty does not make holy things less powerful. Sometimes it makes people more careful. The bell rings again beyond the walls, drifting from the abbey through the damp air. It folds itself into the noises of the court hooves on stone. Buckets clanking, a cook shouting for more onions. The faint scrape of a broom over rushes in the great hall. Somewhere above, in chambers you will never enter except by work. Noble people wake beneath wool blankets and complain of draughts, unaware that their sheets have started a second life in your arms. Your hands move faster now. You learn the logic of the heap. You begin to read cloth the way others read letters. A napkin folded too tightly may hide crumbs. A shirt turned inside out tells of haste. A torn edge reveals where a servant dragged a sheet from a bedpost nail. The laundry pile is not random. It is the castle's memory, brought down to the yard in damp, sour layers. You pause beside one especially fine shirt, almost white beneath the stains, with narrow ties at the throat. It smells faintly of beeswax candle smoke and something sweet, perhaps dried apple or spiced wine. For a moment, you imagine a chamber above, A carved chest, a small fire, rushes newly changed on the floor, a window shutter rattling in the wind. Then Maud places 3 more garments in front of you, and the vision collapses under practical weight. By mid-morning, the heap has been divided into smaller heaps, which is considered progress here, though to the untrained eye it may resemble defeat rearranged. Your back aches from bending, your palms are rough from wicker, water, and cloth. The dog has fallen asleep beneath the awning with his head on a discarded sack, clearly exhausted by his managerial duties. Maud looks over the piles and gives a single approving sniff. It is not praise exactly, but it is close enough that everyone accepts it. The next cauldron is already heating. Steam begins to rise in the shed. The sorted linen waits for soaking, scouring, rinsing, beating, wringing, and all the other quiet punishments required before anyone upstairs can pretend cleanliness happens naturally. You lift the first armful toward the tubs, passing close to the half-burned candle that someone has carried from the wash-house and set near the shelf. Its wick has finally gone dark, but the wax still holds the shape of the little flame it once carried. Beyond the court, the river keeps moving. Above it all, the bells hold the morning together, and under the soot-dark beams of the castle laundry shed, the day settles into steam. You carry the first armful into the laundry shed, and the steam receives you like a damp cloak thrown over your shoulders by someone with poor aim. The air beneath the soot-black rafters is thick and shifting, full of heat rising from the cauldron, smoke searching for escape, and the sharp breath of ash water waiting in the tubs. After the open service court, this place feels almost enclosed from time itself, as if the morning bells reach it only after being softened by steam. The great cauldron hangs over the fire on an iron hook, its black belly shining where heat has polished it. Beneath it, split logs crackle and settle. A boy kneels near the hearth, feeding in smaller sticks, his face pink from warmth on one side and pale with cold on the other. He looks at the bubbling water with the grave expression of someone entrusted with a dragon that happens to be useful for laundry. Maud directs the work without raising her voice. Guest sheets go first, because guests complain in ways that travel. Kitchen cloths wait, because kitchen cloths have already suffered and may continue suffering a little longer. The finer shirts are held back for gentler handling. Chapel linen sits apart like a quiet accusation. You lower a sheet into the tub. It folds over itself, pale and heavy, then slowly sinks as hot water pours across it. Steam rises around your face, dampening your eyelashes. Eleanor adds lye water with careful measure, not too strong, not too weak. Cleanliness here is less a miracle than a negotiation. You take the wooden paddle and begin to turn the cloth. Push down, pull back, fold under, press again. The sheet resists at first, swollen with water, then yields. The motion is slow enough to become almost soothing, though your shoulders disagree with that assessment. The paddle knocks softly against the tub, across the shed. Another worker beats a soaked tablecloth against a plank with flat, rhythmic blows. It sounds like distant carpentry being done by someone mildly annoyed at dinner. Some swear that steam rising from good lye can drive illness out of a room, especially if rosemary has been tossed on the fire. Others insist steam only makes everyone wetter in a new direction. No one can quite agree, so a sprig of rosemary is thrown into the flames anyway, because it smells better than the alternative, and that is reason enough. The scent curls upward, green and sharp beneath the smoke. For a moment, the shed seems less harsh. You breathe it in and think of summer hedges, of bees moving lazily over herbs, of sunlight caught in leaves. Then the tablecloth near you releases a smell of old gravy, and summer politely withdraws. A woman named Anis works beside you, sleeves tied high, grey hair escaping beneath her cap. She has the calm manner of someone who has seen every stain a household can produce and no longer believes in surprise. She shows you how to lift a cloth from the tub with a paddle. Let it drain. Then lower it again so the hot water can move through every fold. If cloth is packed too tightly, dirt hides inside like a monk avoiding chores. At the mention of monks, she glances toward the Abbey Road beyond the yard and tells you, quietly, of Brother Oswin, who once brought 3 ink-stained sleeves to be washed and claimed the stains were evidence of holy labour. Maud, according to Anis, replied that holiness might be improved by rolling up one's cuffs. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether Brother Oswin laughed, blushed, or pretended not to hear, but the sleeves came back the next week just as stained. You smile and keep stirring. The shed fills with small talk in fragments. A page has lost a belt. A cook has burned the morning pottage but insists it is only strongly flavoured. A pilgrim passed the gate before dawn with a badge from Canterbury and a cough from somewhere less prestigious. Someone says the market toll has gone up again. Someone else says toll collectors are proof that mankind fell from grace and then built booths to charge entry. The jokes are soft, worn smooth by repetition, like the handles of the paddles. They do not break the mood. They help carry it. You help lift a sheet from the tub, and the weight of it surprises you. Wet linen has the stubborn pull of a sleeping animal. Together, you and Eleanor twist it carefully, water streaming back into the tub in hot ribbons. Your hands protest, your wrists ache. The cloth tightens, groans, and gives up another flow of cloudy water. Then it is passed to the rinsing side, where cooler water waits in a long trough. The old woman in the red headcloth arrives from the river with another basket and surveys the shed as if judging a church fresco. Her name, you learn, is Sabine. She carries a small pouch of dried lavender tied to her belt, not because she's sentimental, she says, but because foul smells are the devil's little cousins and should not be allowed to gather unopposed. Even now, it is hard to tell whether this is doctrine or personal theory. She sprinkles a pinch of dried lavender near the folded finer linens, then taps the table twice with her knuckles. A small habit, perhaps a charm against miscounting, perhaps just something her hands have always done. In medieval work, superstition and routine sit so close together that separating them would require a sharper knife than anyone wants to use. The morning deepens, light leaks through gaps in the boards and catches in the steam, turning the air silver. Droplets gather on the rafters and fall now and then with cold little taps on shoulders and necks. Each time it happens, someone sighs but no one looks up. The roof has been doing this longer than any of you have been alive, and arguing with it would only flatter the roof. You work through shirts next. The collars need attention. The cuffs are worse. One fine sleeve bears a smear of wax where someone must have leaned too close to a beeswax candle. You soften the wax with warmth, scrape gently, then rub the mark with ash and soapwort. Slowly, the stain loosens, not vanishes, but loosens. Here, that counts as victory. A kitchen cloth comes after, coarse and resigned. It carries the smell of onions, fish, and smoke from the hearth. Anis tells you that cloth used near fish should never be stored near altar linen, because the saints may be forgiving, but no one has tested how forgiving they are about herring. You almost laugh, but the steam takes the laugh and turns it into a cough. At the far end of the shed, Maud counts pieces against the tally stick. Each notch matters. Linen is wealth. A missing sheet can become an accusation. A torn cloth can become a dispute. A fine napkin lost after a feast may travel through rumour faster than a knight on a fresh horse. In some households, linens are locked in chests with iron keys, counted before and after use, and guarded by women who trust neither guests nor gravity. The brown dog wakes, stretches, and pads inside just far enough to lie where he is least useful. Someone nearly trips over him and calls him a name that is more descriptive than affectionate. He accepts this as tribute and closes his eye again. By mid-morning, the work has become a weather of its own. Heat on your face, cold at your feet, steam in your hair, ash under your nails, cloth moving from basket to tub, tub to trough, trough to ringing plank. The sounds blend into a low, steady murmur, splash, slap, creak, drip, crackle, breath. You no longer think about each motion. Your body enters the rhythm, and the rhythm carries you. In the sleepy blur of it, the laundry shed feels almost like a chapel of labour, with cauldron smoke instead of incense, paddles instead of psalters, and Maud as an abbess whose holy rule is simply that nothing be lost, scorched, torn, or left smelling like last night's pie. The abbey bell sounds again, slow and round in the distance. This time, you hear it through steam, through rafters, through the soft fatigue gathering in your limbs. You pause with both hands on a damp sheet and let the final note fade. Then Maud nods toward the next basket, and because the day is still young and linen has the patience of stone, you reach for it. By the time Maud allows the baskets to rest, the morning has stretched itself thin, and you feel it in every part of you that has had the misfortune of being useful. Your hands are red from hot water and lye, your sleeves are damp despite every effort to keep them tied, and your apron clings to your knees as though it has developed personal affection for you. The steam under the rafters softens a little, the fire is fed lower, and the laundry shed exhales around you. No one announces the meal with ceremony. There is no trumpet, no carved platter, no lordly procession beneath painted beams. There is only Annis wiping her hands on a rag and saying, "Eat while it's warm," which in this world carries the authority of royal law. You follow the others out toward the servants' side of the yard, where a narrow lean-to keeps off most of the rain and almost none of the wind. A rough board has been set across 2 barrels, and on it sit a pot of pottage, a round of coarse bread, a small jug of ale, and a wooden bowl of something that may once have been onions. The pottage steams gently, thick with barley, leeks, and a few shreds of salt pork if fortune has chosen to visit. Your stomach, which has been quiet out of politeness, suddenly remembers it has opinions. You sit on an upturned crate, it wobbles beneath you, but not enough to be considered betrayal. Someone hands you a trencher of old bread, hollowed slightly to hold the pottage. The bread is hard along the edges and soft where the broth soaks in, and as you lift it close, the smell rises rich and humble grain, smoke, onions, warmth. After hours of lye, river water, and suspicious tablecloths, it seems almost heavenly. Some swear that eating from a trencher makes the meal taste better, because the bread remembers every drop. Others say hunger is the true seasoning, and hunger is generous today. You take a slow bite. The pottage is plain, but it fills you from the inside, and warmth spreads down through your chest. Around you, the workers eat in the manner of people who know the pause will not last. They speak between mouthfuls, not wasting either words or food. Eleanor sits beside you, blowing on her bowl. Sabine tears her bread with strong fingers and feeds one small corner to the brown dog, who has appeared from nowhere with the silent precision of a tax collector. "Don't start," Maud says without looking up. Sabine feeds him another piece. The dog chews solemnly, as if accepting a sacred offering. Rain begins to tick softly on the edge of the lean-to roof. Not a hard rain, just a fine grey stitching through the air, enough to darken the yardstones and bring up the smell of mud, horse straw, and wet wood. A cart rattles beyond the gate, its wheel complaining in a familiar crooked rhythm. You glance toward it, thinking of the broken cart near the stable, and someone mutters that wheels and men both begin to creak once winter gets into them. No one argues. Talk drifts toward the road outside the castle. A pilgrim passed earlier, the one with badges on his cloak, and now the story has grown. One person says he came from Canterbury, another says Walsingham, a third insists he had a shell from Compostela, though how anyone saw this through the fog is left uncertain. No one can quite agree whether pilgrim badges protect the wearer from misfortune, prove devotion, or simply announce that a person has walked far enough to become interesting. Annis says she once knew a woman who sewed a pilgrim badge into the lining of her husband's cloak so he would stop falling into ditches on market days. Did it work, you ask? He fell into fewer ditches, Annis says, but he also drank less ale, so the saint may not deserve all the credit. The laughter is quiet, mostly through noses and into bowls. It settles warmly under the roof with the smell of pottage. Maud speaks of market tolls, because the soap merchant is expected in town by noon, if the road has not swallowed his cart. Soap is dear, especially the good kind, and the household steward has been arguing over prices since Michaelmas. A toll must be paid at the gate, another perhaps at the bridge, and one more if the town reeve is feeling imaginative. Some swear toll collectors can smell a full purse under 3 layers of wool. Even now, it is hard to tell whether that is superstition or professional respect. You drink from the ale jug when it comes to you. The ale is small and weak, safer than questionable water and comforting in its cloudy way. It tastes of grain, yeast, and the faint sourness of the barrel. It is not strong enough to lift anyone's spirits very far, but it does make the damp yard seem less personally insulting. Across the court, 2 servants carry a chest bound with iron straps toward the keep. Sabine watches them pass and lowers her voice. The chest, she says, may contain cloth from the winter storehouse, or perhaps the chapel relics being moved before the bishop's man arrives. There is, of course, the finger bone in the silver case, the one no one fully trusts. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether it belonged to a saint, a scholar, or a chicken with excellent connections. Still, when the chest passes, several people cross themselves. You do too, because caution is free. The dog, less spiritually cautious, sniffs the air and sneezes. A kitchen boy joins the meal late, carrying a heel of bread and looking offended by the world. He claims the cook has blamed him for the burned pottage, though everyone can taste that today's pottage is not burned. This leads to a discussion of yesterday's pottage, which apparently was burned, and the day before's, which may have been smoked with intention, depending on whether one values kindness over truth. Medieval kitchens, you learn, are places where mistakes become recipes if repeated confidently enough. You lean back against a post, letting the food settle. For the first time all day, your hands rest empty in your lap. They throb softly, fingers rough and faintly swollen, but there is pleasure in stillness. Rain taps the roof. Steam rises from bowls. A bell rings somewhere beyond the walls, marking the hour with a sound that feels both distant and close, as if it has passed through every wet cloth you have touched. The half-burned candle from the laundry shed sits near Maud's tally board, carried there for reasons no one explains. Its wick is black, its wax bent sideways. You notice it again and feel oddly, that it has travelled through the morning with you, a small pale witness to cold water, ash and linen, in a world of iron keys, oak doors, wet wool, and careful counting. Even a tired candle can seem like company. The rain strengthens briefly, pattering harder on the roof. You watch drops fall from the edge in shining strings. Beyond them, the bleaching field lies dull and green under the grey sky, waiting for the washed linen to be spread across the grass. The thought of carrying damp sheets into the rain feels like a joke someone made centuries ago and forgot to end. Sabine sees your glance and smiles. "Good weather for whitening," she says. You look at the rain. She shrugs. Or bad weather. Depends who you ask. Some swear linen whitens best under sun, others under dew, and a few insist that a light rain before noon carries a blessing if the wind comes from the east. No one can quite agree, which is convenient, because the weather rarely asks permission before becoming itself. Maud stands first, brushing crumbs from her skirt. That is the signal. Bowls are scraped, trenchers finished, the ale jug stoppered, and the brief kingdom of rest begins to dissolve. You take one last bite of soaked bread, warm and soft at the centre, then rise from the crate with a small private groan that you hope sounds like dignity. The brown dog stretches, shakes rain from his ears though he has been mostly dry, and trots after you as if he too has eaten just enough to continue his important work. You return to the laundry baskets. The cloth waits, rinsed and wrung, smelling now of ash, river, and faint lavender. Beyond the yard, the field opens under a curtain of fine rain. You lift one corner of a heavy sheet with Eleanor, and together you begin carrying it toward the grass, where the slow work of whitening will take the afternoon in its damp hands. You carry the damp sheet out into the bleaching field, and the rain receives it with quiet approval, as though sky and cloth have made some private arrangement without consulting your arms. The field lies beyond the service court, a long stretch of winter-green grass fenced with low hurdles and bordered by bare hedges. In summer it might seem gentle, perhaps even pleasant, but now it waits under a grey noon with mud at its edges and a wind that knows exactly where your sleeves are wet. Eleanor walks backward, holding the far corners of the sheet, and you move with her carefully, trying not to let the linen drag. The sheet billows once in the wind like a tired sail, then sags heavily between you. It takes effort not to laugh, because for a moment the two of you look less like workers and more like very unsuccessful shipbuilders. "Mind the dung," Eleanor says. This is practical advice, spiritual advice, and possibly the whole philosophy of medieval life. You step around a dark patch in the grass and lower the sheet. Together, you spread it flat, smoothing wrinkles with your palms. Cold moisture seeps through your knees when you kneel. Around you, other workers do the same, laying cloth after cloth across the field until the grass is patched with pale rectangles, shirts, napkins, and long bands of linen pinned down with wooden pegs or weighted with smooth stones. The purpose is simple and mysterious at once. Sunlight whitens linen. Dew whitens linen. Fresh air helps draw away sourness. Rain, according to some, assists if it is gentle and clean. According to others, rain simply makes already wet things wetter, which is an argument difficult to defeat. No one can quite agree whether the best bleaching comes from bright sun, moonlit dew, or prayers said before the cloth is laid. So the household uses all three when available and complains when none arrive on schedule. Today, you have rain. It falls lightly, speckling the linen in tiny dark marks that spread and fade. You press a wooden peg into the ground at one corner, then another. The soil gives way reluctantly. Your fingers are cold again, stiff from the meal's brief comfort already fading. The brown dog trots along the line of cloths with his nose down, inspecting each one with the solemn care of a bishop examining doctrine. "Keep him off the sheets," Maud calls from the fence. The dog immediately steps onto a kitchen towel. Sabine claps once, and he leaps away, offended but obedient. He sits by the hedge and looks as though he's been falsely accused by history. You continue laying cloth. The field becomes a map of household labour, each pale shape marking a different chamber, table, body, or duty. The guest sheets go nearest the cleanest grass. The kitchen cloths are placed farther off, where their stains may wrestle with the weather in private. The finer shirts lie on a patch where the ground slopes gently, so water will not gather in folds. Chapel linen remains apart in a basket beneath an oiled cloth, still waiting for the right moment, as though even the sky must be negotiated with before touching it. A servant boy brings a bucket of clean water and a birch whisk. Anis shows you how to sprinkle the cloth lightly, flicking droplets over it so the moisture lies even. It is a strangely delicate gesture after all the beating and boiling of the morning. The water scatters silver in the grey light. You try it, awkward at first, then better. The whisk bends and springs in your hand. Some swear that birch carries a cleansing virtue of its own, because it is among the first trees to wake in spring. Others say birch is used because it grows conveniently and does not argue. Even now, it is hard to tell whether usefulness becomes magic after enough generations of use. Beyond the fence, the road toward town glistens with mud. A cart passes slowly, pulled by a small horse with steam rising from its flanks. One wheel jolts through a rut and gives a long wooden groan that reminds you of the crooked cart in the yard. The driver crosses himself at the roadside shrine beneath the ash tree, where a little painted saint stands inside a weathered niche. Rain has softened the saint's face until the expression is either mercy or damp exhaustion. You pause to watch as the cart disappears behind the hedge. The bleaching field is not silent. It has its own thin music rain ticking on cloth, wind moving through bare twigs, distant bells, the creak of pegs pressed into earth, the soft slap of wet linen lifted and spread. From the kitchen yard comes a shout, then laughter, then the clatter of a dropped pan. Above the keep, smoke leans sideways, showing the wind's mood more clearly than any person can. You move down the rows with Eleanor, checking corners, smoothing folds, turning pieces that have bunched. This work asks for patience more than strength. You cannot force linen to whiten. You can only prepare it, lay it out, keep watch, trust weather, and return again. It is a kind of waiting disguised as labour. The rain eases, a brighter patch appears behind the clouds, not sunlight exactly, but the suggestion that sunlight may still exist somewhere above all this wool-coloured sky. The workers notice without speaking. Faces tilt upward, shoulders loosen a little. Sabine mutters that if the sun comes out now, St. Clair has remembered them. Anis replies that St. Clair may simply have finished her own washing. This earns one soft laugh from Maud, quickly hidden, but you hear it. You kneel beside a shirt whose collar still shows a faint yellow stain. Eleanor hands you a little paste of ash and crushed soapwort, and you rub it gently into the mark before rinsing with a splash from the bucket. The paste feels gritty beneath your fingertips. You work slowly, mindful of the weave. Cloth is expensive, labour is expensive, and mistakes are remembered longer than effort. No one can quite agree whether stains left in linen invite illness, shame, or only gossip, but everyone agrees they should be fought while there is daylight. A gust of wind lifts one corner of a sheet, and you hurry to catch it before mud can claim it. For a breath. The cloth rises around you, pale and cool against your cheek, filling with air like a ghost trying on domestic duties. You pull it down, pin it tighter, and glance around to see whether anyone noticed. The dog did. He looks impressed. This is not much, but you accept it. The afternoon settles into its damp rhythm. Cloth is sprinkled, turned, smoothed, watched. The sky brightens, dims, brightens again. Your hunger softens into drowsiness, helped by the pottage in your belly and the steady hush of rain on grass. You're tired in a low, even way now, not sharply, but thoroughly, as if the day has soaked into you just as water soaks into linen. At last, a true blade of sunlight slips through the clouds and lies across the field. It is weak, pale, and brief, but everyone sees it. The linen catches the light. For one quiet moment, the sheets seem almost luminous against the wet grass. Not pure white, not yet, but brighter than before. Steam rises faintly from some of the cloth, a delicate breath lifting into the air. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether linen bleaches because of sun, dew, grass, prayer, or the stubbornness of those who tend it. Standing there with wet knees and cold hands, you suspect the answer is all of them, and also time. The bell rings again from the abbey, soft across the fields. Maud tells you to leave the sheets a while longer. The sky may clear, the grass may do its work, the saints, if they are listening, may take pity on tablecloths. You step back from the rows and look over the field, the pale cloth, the dark hedges, the keep rising beyond, the road shining with rain, the dog asleep near the fence as though he has personally supervised the weather. Behind you, the laundry shed still breathes steam. Ahead, the afternoon waits. And beyond the castle walls, the monastery bell calls all things, even wet linen, toward its own slow order. You leave the bleaching field while the pale linens rest under the uncertain sky, and the damp grass releases your knees with a coldness that seems almost reluctant to let you go. Behind you, the sheets lie pinned and weighted, quietly accepting whatever blessing the afternoon can manage. Ahead, the abbey road bends away from the castle yard, shining with rainwater, edged by thorn hedges and the dark shapes of winter bare trees. Maud gives you a smaller basket this time, though small is a generous word for anything full of wet cloth. The bundle is wrapped in a coarse cover and tied with cord, set apart from the common washing. These are pieces for the monastery linen from the guest house, towels from the infirmary, a few altar cloths that must be handled with clean hands and cleaner intentions. You're not sure your hands qualify, but Sabine spits lightly on her thumb, rubs a mark from your sleeve, and says, "Good enough for mud-born creatures." Sounds almost affectionate. You set off with Eleanor beside you and the brown dog behind you, because apparently no road in the Shire may now be travelled without his approval. The path dips through a stand of alder and willow, where the earth is soft and dark. Rainwater clings to the branches and drops without warning onto your cap, your neck, your basket. Somewhere in the brush, a blackbird scolds the world. Somewhere farther off, the river moves with its patient, hidden sound. The abbey bell rings again, nearer now. Its tone spreads over the fields, slow and round, calling monks from one duty to another, though no one can quite agree whether bells guide the soul, frighten demons, mark time, or simply remind everyone that they are late. In practice, they do all four. You pass a roadside shrine set into the wall where the path turns. A little wooden virgin stands beneath a narrow roof, her painted blue cloak faded by weather. At her feet lie small offerings, a bent pin, a scrap of ribbon, 3 pebbles, and what may once have been a pilgrim badge before mud claimed its details. Eleanor touches 2 fingers to her brow. You do the same. Partly from reverence and partly because in the medieval world it is wise not to ignore anyone who might be able to help with rain. The Abbey gate comes into view at the end of the lane, its arch made of worn stone darkened by centuries of hands, weather, and passing carts. A lay brother opens to you, his robe patched at the hem, his expression mild but watchful. He knows the laundry basket before he knows you. In places like this, people are often recognised by what they carry. Inside, the abbey yard is quieter than the castle court, though not still. A novice crosses with a bucket. A monk walks beneath the cloister with a book tucked under his arm, one thumb marking his place. 2 hens scratch near the herb garden in direct violation of what is probably some rule. The air smells of wet stone, beeswax, cabbage, ink, and the faint medicinal bitterness of dried herbs hung near the infirmary door. You follow the lay brother toward the monastery washhouse, smaller than the castle's but more orderly. Everything has a place tubs along one wall, paddles hung from pegs, ash covered in a lidded bin, drying racks stacked by size. Even the steam seems better behaved here, rising in neat pale breaths instead of wandering around like gossip. Brother Oswin appears from the cloister just as Annis described him, though today you see only ink on his fingers rather than his sleeves. He is thin, with a narrow face and eyes that look as if they spend most of their time among letters and have not fully adjusted to people. He glances at the basket and then at you. Guest house linen, he asks. And infirmary towels, Eleanor says. He nods gravely, as though receiving news from a distant kingdom. Then his gaze falls on the dog, who has entered the abbey yard with the confidence of a minor lord. Is that animal required? Brother Oswin asks. The dog sits. Apparently, Eleanor says. No one argues, which seems to settle the matter. The monastery laundry has its own rules, and you learn them slowly. Cloth from the infirmary must be washed apart, especially if used for fevers or poultices. Some towels smell faintly of vinegar, mallow, sage, and something bitter steeped for wounds or aching joints. A monk from the infirmary brings a small jar of crushed herb paste, and warns that one towel may have been used with leeching. You look at the towel. The towel looks innocent. You decide innocence is not enough evidence. Some swear that illness clings to cloth like burrs to wool, and that airing linen beneath a clear sky helps drive it out. Others say boiling is the truest prayer in such matters. Even now, it is hard to tell whether belief, heat, or caution does the greater work. So the monastery uses all 3 and adds a psalm for good measure. You help sort the towels into a wooden tub. Hot water is poured over them, then ash water, milder than in the castle shed but still sharp enough to wake your cracked knuckles. The monks do not beat cloth as fiercely as the castle workers do. They soak, press, rinse, and fold with a patience that feels almost suspicious. Perhaps vows make people gentler with linen. Perhaps monks simply own fewer tablecloths ruined by pie. Brother Oswin stands nearby with a tally tablet, marking each piece. His fingers are ink-stained after all, dark at the tips, and you remember the story of his sleeves. When he catches you looking, he folds his hands into his sleeves with great dignity, which only makes the ink more obvious. You look away kindly. The altar cloths are handled last. Before touching them, the lay brother pours clean water over your hands from a small ewer. The water is cold, but the gesture slows you. The cloth is fine and pale, softer than most you have touched today. It carries the faint scent of beeswax, stone chapel air, and old incense. You hold it carefully, almost afraid to breathe too hard on it. No one can quite agree whether cloth used near relics absorbs holiness, dust, or both. The monks speak as if holiness is the answer. Sabine, were she here, would probably say dust is more reliable. The cloth is not scrubbed but lightly rinsed, pressed between clean boards, then laid aside on a rack near the warmest wall. Brother Oswin murmurs something about proper order, and Eleanor whispers that proper order is easier when one has never washed kitchen towels after a feast. You keep your face calm, because laughing in a monastery washhouse feels like dropping a spoon during Mass. Outside, the cloister walk glows with late afternoon light. The rain has stopped for now, and the wet stones shine softly. A young novice passes carrying parchment sheets, his fingers stained yellow from scraping skins. He nods to you, then nearly trips over the dog, who has chosen the exact centre of the path for contemplation. The novice recovers, reddens, and hurries on. The dog remains serene. As the rinsed cloths are hung, a deeper bell sounds for the next office. The monks begin moving toward the church in 2s and 3s, robes whispering over stone. Their rhythm is different from the laundry yard, but not entirely. Rise, wash, pray, copy, eat, ring, return, repeat. A life measured by bells and tasks, by seasons and worn steps, by the same actions done faithfully until the body remembers them better than thought. You stand beside the drying racks and let the sound of chanting drift faintly from the church. It is low and even, almost like wind through a closed door. Steam rises around you, carrying the scent of wet linen and ash. Your hands ache less now, or perhaps the ache has become familiar enough to stop asking for attention. When the work is done, Brother Ozen thanks you with a small bow and hands Eleanor a wrapped heel of bread from the guest-house kitchen. It is darker than the castle bread, flecked with rye, and still faintly warm. This is payment, kindness, or both. In a world like this, the difference often depends on who is hungry. You step back through the abbey gate with the empty basket lighter against your hip. The sky has opened in thin blue strips above the road, and the fields shine where rain clings to every blade. Behind you, the bells continue. Ahead, the town waits with its market stalls, tolls, thread, soap, gossip, and mud deep enough to remember every passing boot. The dog trots ahead, pauses at the shrine, and looks back as if making sure you're following. So you do. You follow the abbey road toward town with the empty basket against your hip. Though empty does not mean weightless. Wicker has a memory of burdens, and so do arms. The rain has left the lanes slick and shining, with puddles gathered in every rut as if the road has been collecting small mirrors for later use. Your boots sink, lift, sink again, each step making that familiar soft pull of mud that seems determined to keep a portion of everyone who passes. The town rises ahead behind its low wall, not grand like the castle, not solemn like the abbey, but busy in a way that feels alive even before you reach the gate. Smoke lifts from chimneys, crows gather along the roof lines, a cart creaks somewhere beyond the wall, and voices drift out in uneven bursts, a woman calling prices, a child protesting something, a man laughing too loudly for the hour. The brown dog trots first, then pauses at the gate as if expecting a toll to be demanded from him personally. The gatekeeper knows Eleanor and lets you through with only a glance at the basket, though he does mutter about mud on the road and mud in the market and mud in the souls of men who refuse to mend drainage ditches. No one can quite agree whether town gatekeepers are born gloomy or trained into it, but this one has clearly completed his studies. Inside, the market square opens around you in damp, crowded colour. Stalls stand beneath patched awnings, their cloth roofs sagging with rainwater. Merchants arrange onions, apples, smoked fish, bundles of rushes, lengths of undyed wool, wooden bowls, iron hooks, and little packets of herbs tied with thread. A woman sells pilgrim badges from a tray, dull pewter tokens shaped like shells, crosses, little saints, and one rather uncertain-looking beast that might be a lion if lions had been described by someone's cousin. You pass slowly, careful not to bump anyone with the basket. The ground is churned into thick mud mixed with straw, old leaves, and mysteries best left below the boot. A butcher's boy carries a tray past you, and you turn your head politely toward a stall selling ribbons. Medieval markets are rich in smells, and not all wealth is welcome. Eleanor leads you toward a narrow stall near the side of the square, where an older merchant keeps soap, thread, pins, needles, and little household necessities in boxes lined with cloth. The soap is wrapped in scraps and stacked like pale stones. Some pieces are rough and brownish, made close by with tallow and ash. Others are smoother, lighter and dearer, brought through trade from farther places, carrying whispers of olive oil, warm coasts, and merchants who charge extra for geography. Maud's list is short but exact. Soap for finer linen, strong thread for mending sheets, a packet of needles, if the price is not foolish, more cord for tying bundles. Eleanor handles the bargaining while you stand nearby and learn that buying thread can involve more strategy than besieging a keep. The merchant praises the soap. Eleanor doubts the soap. The merchant praises the thread. Eleanor doubts the thread. The merchant's eyesight, and possibly the moral condition of his ancestors. The merchant places a hand over his heart and looks wounded. Some swear market bargaining is a form of theatre older than the town itself. Even now, it is hard to tell whether anyone believes their own lines, but everyone performs them faithfully. At last, coins change hands, not many, enough to make both sides appear mildly dissatisfied, which seems to mean success. You tuck the purchased thread into the basket and touch the needles carefully through their wrapping. Good needles matter. A torn sheet can lose value quickly if left unmended, and linen is too costly to treat carelessly. In many households, cloth is counted and locked away like silver. A fine sheet may be part of a dowry. A tablecloth may appear in a will. A napkin may cause an argument that lasts longer than the meal it once served. Near the centre of the square, a man with a cracked voice announces fresh eels. A child nearby repeats the cry with no eels to sell, apparently for the joy of noise. The dog watches the eel basket with spiritual intensity. You tug him away before he begins a new career in theft. You stop at a stall selling herbs, where bunches hang from a beam sage, rue, rosemary, lavender, dried yarrow, and soapwort roots tied in pale bundles. The herb woman has sharp eyes and a shawl pinned with a small bronze brooch shaped like a leaf. She tells Eleanor that soapwort steeped in warm water is better for delicate cloth than harsh lye, especially lace, veils, and altar linen. She also says rue hung over a doorway keeps sickness away, envy away, and unwanted suitors away, though no one can quite agree which of these claims has been most thoroughly tested. You buy a small bundle of soapwort root. The herb woman slips in a sprig of lavender for the linen chest, then looks at you and adds, "Or for your temper, if the day grows long." This is not inaccurate enough to refuse. A bell sounds from the town church, thinner than the abbey bell, less deep but nearer and more insistent. People glance up, judge the hour, and return to trade. Market time moves differently from laundry time. Here, moments are measured in bargains, in passing carts, in whether rain begins again before the fish sells. At the edge of the square, a scribe sits beneath an awning writing a letter for a man who cannot write one himself. The scribe's fingers are stained black, and you think again of Brother Oswin hiding his hands in his sleeves. Beside the well, two women discuss a missing blanket with the intensity of royal envoys. One swears it was borrowed after Candlemas and never returned. The other claims it was a different blanket entirely, darker, narrower, and less inclined to shed wool. Those who tell the tale never fully agree how many medieval disputes begin with borrowed cloth, but after one morning in laundry work, you suspect the number is not small. Eleanor hears enough to raise an eyebrow. "That will be at Manor Court," she murmurs. You do not yet know exactly what that means, but it sounds like the kind of place where a blanket can become evidence. The crooked cart from earlier appears near the far side of the square, or perhaps its twin, one wheel wobbling with a familiar complaint. Its driver argues with a toll collector beside the bridge gate. The toll collector wears a hood darkened by rain and holds a tally stick. The driver gestures at the mud, the wheel, the horse, and possibly the unfairness of existence. The toll collector appears unmoved. Some offices, like damp wool, resist softening. You and Eleanor move toward a mender's stall, where scraps of linen and wool are folded in neat piles. You choose several pieces for patching not new cloth, but sound enough, cut from garments whose first lives have ended. The mender shows you a strip from an old sheet, worn thin at the centre but strong along the edge. Nothing wasted, nothing done. Cloth becomes patch, patch becomes rag, rag becomes tinder, and perhaps even ash for lye. The circle is not elegant, but it is practical, which is often better fed. A light rain begins again, dimpling puddles in the square. The awnings sag lower, people shift closer to stalls. Someone curses as water pours from a roof edge straight down the back of his cloak. The dog shakes himself beside a nun buying onions, and the nun gives him a look so stern that even he steps back. You tuck the soap, thread, needles, cord, herb bundle, and patching scraps safely into the basket. It is no longer empty, but the weight is manageable, and it smells better than it did before. Lavender rises above the mud and fish and wet wool, softening the air near you by a small but noticeable mercy. As you turn back toward the gate, the market continues behind you, each stall its own little kingdom of need and noise. You carry back the means to mend and wash, small objects that will pass through many hands before nightfall. Thread will close tears, soap will loosen stains, cord will bind bundles, soapwort will foam faintly in warm water, needles will flash by candlelight. The town bell rings once more, and beyond it, faint but steady, you hear the abbey answer. You step into the muddy road homeward, the dog trotting at your heel, the basket creaking softly, and the talk of missing blankets, unpaid washing, and one suspicious goose following you like a rumour through the rain. You return from town with the basket tucked close, and the rain following in fine silver threads, the kind that do not seem heavy at first but slowly persuade every layer of clothing to surrender. The lavender sprig lies near the top of the basket, softening the sharper smells of mud, wool, soap, and market fish, and for a while you walk with your face turned slightly toward it, grateful for any mercy that arrives in leaves. The road bends past the outer fields before it reaches the castle again, and there, near the manor yard, a small crowd has gathered under the shelter of a long timber roof. Eleanor slows. The dog stops too, of course, as if he's been expecting this appointment all day. Manor Court, Eleanor says. You look toward the shelter. Beneath it stands the Reeve with a tally stick and a damp hood, beside a table where a few written rolls are weighted with stones. Around him wait tenants, servants, a pair of villains with muddy boots, one sharp-faced woman clutching a folded blanket, another woman with arms crossed so tightly she looks tied shut, and a goose in a wicker pen behaving with suspicious calm. No one can quite agree whether justice is improved by rain, but it certainly makes everyone look more honest and miserable. You linger at the edge, because the laundry basket gives you a reasonable excuse to stand nearby. The first dispute concerns the blanket. The sharp-faced woman claims she lent it after Candlemas, when frost still silvered the inside of shutters and children slept two to a bed for warmth. The other woman insists the borrowed blanket was returned, and furthermore was not worth so much fuss, being thin, brown, and inclined to smell of sheep no matter how often it was aired. At this, several people murmur, "A blanket's character is not a small matter." The Reeve asks whether there were witnesses. There are always witnesses, though rarely to the same event. One man remembers seeing a brown blanket, another remembers a grey one, a third says he remembers no blanket but does remember excellent ale that evening, which earns him no gratitude from the Reeve. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the missing blanket was truly missing, mistaken, or quietly resting in someone's chest with no intention of reappearing. But you understand now why cloth is counted, locked, tallied, watched. Linen and wool are not background things here. They are wealth, warmth, status, memory. To lose a blanket is to lose sleep itself. The next matter concerns unpaid washing. A woman from the lower cottages has washed shirts for a carter and claims he owes her 2 pennies and a measure of barley. The carter says the shirts came back no cleaner than before, which causes several washerwomen nearby to turn toward him with the slow, united attention of people who know exactly how dangerous water can become when guided by insult. The accused washerwoman lifts her chin. They were carter's shirts. This seems to explain much. Some swear that certain stains belong more to a profession than a garment smith's soot. Cook's grease, shepherd's lanolin, carter's mud, scribe's ink. Even now, it is hard to tell where the person ends and the stain begins. The Reeve listens, asks questions, frowns at the tally, and decides the carter owes 1 penny, half the barley, and better manners if he can find any at market. A quiet laugh moves through the crowd, soft as rain over straw. Then comes the goose. The goose, white with grey wings and a bright orange bill, sits in its pen with the stillness of a creature either innocent or very experienced in legal matters. It is accused of invading a bleaching patch near the cottages, trampling damp linen, and leaving proof of its visit upon a child's shirt. Its owner denies that this goose, specifically, committed the act. There are many geese, he says. Geese resemble one another. It is dangerous to condemn on appearance alone. The shirt is produced. Everyone looks at it. The goose says nothing. The Reeve rubs his forehead. The dog edges closer to the pen, fascinated. The goose turns one eye on him, and the dog immediately reconsiders his position in the world. No one can quite agree whether animals understand guilt, but many agree that geese understand power. After testimony from a boy who saw a goose of proud manner entering the bleaching patch, the Reeve orders the owner to pay a small fine and keep the bird penned for 3 days. The owner protests. The goose bites the wicker. The court appears satisfied. You almost smile, but your mouth is tired, and the rain is finding the back of your neck again. Maud appears from the castle path just as the court begins to thin. She has come to check whether Eleanor found thread and soap at a fair price. Eleanor presents the goods like offerings: the wrapped soap, the needles, the cord, the scrap cloth, the bundle of soapwort, the lavender. Maud inspects each item with the seriousness of a priest examining relics, then nods, praise, in Maud's language, often looks like the absence of complaint. The blanket women are still muttering as they leave. The carter avoids the washerwomen's eyes. The goose owner carries his pen away with wounded dignity. The dog follows the goose for 6 steps, then returns to you after deciding bravery has limits. You move on toward the castle, past the manor hall with its smoke-dark doorway, past a line of winter storehouses where apples, onions, grain, salt fish, and folded cloth are kept against hunger and cold. Iron locks hang from the doors. Oak beams hold the roofs low and strong. A boy sprinkles fresh rushes near the hall entrance, covering yesterday's mud and straw with today's slightly cleaner mud and straw. Medieval housekeeping, you begin to suspect, is often a negotiation with the inevitable. The manor court lingers in your mind. A blanket, a shirt, a goose, 2 pennies, a measure of barley. Small things, yet not small here. Each one touches warmth, work, food, pride, and the fragile order that keeps people from taking every grievance directly to someone's nose. Cloth passes through all of it. It covers beds, bodies, tables, wounds, altars, infants, chests, and sometimes the truth. You reach the service yard again as the rain eases. The bleaching field gleams beyond the fence, and the spread linens look brighter now under the pale afternoon, though perhaps that is only hope drying on grass. The half-burned candle remains near Maud's board, and the crooked cart still leans by the stable, one wheel now propped with a block. From the kitchen comes the smell of onions and smoked fish, and from the laundry shed comes steam, waiting patiently. Maud sends you to bring in the cloth before the sky changes its mind, so you set the market basket under the awning, flex your aching hands, and walk back toward the field, past the damp hedge and the dog's careful paw prints in the mud. Behind you, the manor court dissolves into talk and memory. Ahead, the pale sheets lift slightly in the wind, ready to be gathered before twilight settles by the river stones. You return to the bleaching field as the afternoon begins to lean toward evening, and the world seems to have softened at the edges. The rain has stopped, though it has left its memory everywhere in the shine of the grass, in the dark seams of the fence posts, in the mud that clings to your boots as if it has grown fond of you. The linen lies across the field in pale rows, brighter than before, each sheet and shirt holding the last of the weak daylight. You bend to lift the first corner, and cold water beads against your fingers. The cloth is damp but no longer heavy with washing, and when you raise it with Eleanor, a thin breath of clean air rises from it. Grass, rain, ash, and the faintest trace of lavender from somewhere in the day. You give the sheet a gentle shake. Droplets scatter like tiny glass beads, and the brown dog snaps at one, immediately surprised that water remains difficult to catch. Still learning, Eleanor murmurs. A wind moves across the field, not strong, but steady enough to lift the hems of shirts and flutter the edges of towels. You and the others gather the cloth carefully, folding each piece over an arm, matching corners, keeping the cleaner side inward. Maud watches from near the fence, counting under her breath. A missing cloth can become a court matter. A muddied cloth can become a personal tragedy. A sheet blown into a hedge can become both. No one can quite agree whether linen left too long at dusk invites damp spirits, fox mischief, or simply more mud. but no one wishes to test any of those possibilities. As you lift a kitchen towel from the far edge of the field, you find a small snail clinging to one corner, apparently having mistaken household labour for shelter. You remove it gently and set it on a stone. Sabine would likely say a snail on clean linen means slow fortune coming. Anis says it means the cloth was too close to the hedge. Both may be true. The sky is clearing in narrow strips beyond the keep. Light falls low and slanting over the field, making every droplet on the grass shine for a moment before fading. The castle walls glow dull gold at their upper edges, while the lower stones remain cold and grey. Smoke rises from chimneys in soft columns, and somewhere in the yard a horse exhales loudly, sending white breath into the air. You carry an armful of folded cloth toward the river stones for the final rinse. Not all the linen needs it, but some pieces, especially those that held ash or stubborn soap, are taken once more to the water before drying indoors. The path down to the river has grown slick with the day's traffic. Your boots slide once, just enough to remind you that dignity has poor footing in mud. At the bank, the river has changed since morning. The mist is gone, and the water reflects a dimming sky streaked with pewter and pale rose. Rushes bend along the edge. The stones where you knelt before gleam dark, worn smooth by work older than anyone now living in the castle. You set your bundle down and kneel again, but this time the motion feels familiar. Your knees remember the place. You dip the first cloth into the river, letting the current take the last cloudiness from it. The water is still cold enough to bite, but the shock no longer surprises you. You hold tight, swish, lift, press against the stone, and rinse again. Around you, the other workers do the same in a quieter rhythm than morning. The early jokes have thinned. The day has moved into that hour when voices lower naturally, as if the approaching dark has asked for gentleness. Some swear the river at twilight belongs partly to this world and partly to another. Old women speak of washer spirits seen bending over stones on certain nights, rinsing grave cloths that never dry. Others say such tales are invented to keep children from wandering near the bank after dark. Even now, it's hard to tell whether fear makes the story, or the story gives shape to the fear already waiting in the reeds. A heron lifts from the far bank, slow and silent, its wings broad in the fading light. For a moment, everyone watches. Then the bird disappears beyond the trees, and the work resumes. You rinse a fine shirt next. Its collar has brightened, though one faint mark remains near the seam. You rub carefully, but not too much. Cloth can be worn away by the desire to perfect it. This seems worth remembering, though the laundry yard does not pause for wisdom. Beside you, Anis tells a low tale of a woman who once washed at twilight and heard her own name called from the opposite bank. She wisely did not answer, because everyone knows that answering unseen voices near water is a poor foundation for a long life. No one can quite agree what would have happened if she had replied. Some say the river would have claimed her shadow. Others say she would simply have married badly. The second fate is considered more common, and therefore more frightening. The dog stands behind you, ears forward, listening to the rushes. When a frog croaks, he jumps sideways and pretends he intended to inspect a different patch of mud. You're too tired to laugh loudly, but a small smile comes anyway. The final cloths are rinsed, wrung, and laid in baskets lined with cleaner sacking. Your hands have gone red again, knuckles rough and shining. Eleanor gives you a dab of goose grease mixed with crushed mallow from a little wooden pot, and you rub it into the cracks. It smells faintly of herbs and farmyard honesty. Some swear mallow softens skin better if gathered before sunrise on a Friday. Others say any mallow is better than none. Your hands, not being philosophers, accept it gratefully. The abbey bell rings in the distance, deeper now in the evening air. It rolls over the fields, across the wet road, through the hedge and the castle yard, and reaches the river as a soft trembling note. You pause with one hand resting on a stone. Earlier that same bell woke you in the cold dimness of the wash-house. Now it seems to gather the day behind you ash, lie, market mud, monastery steam, pottage, rain, the accused goose, the suspicious relic, the crooked cart, the half-burned candle, the endless patience of cloth. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether bells mark time passing or time returning. Tonight, it feels like both. You lift the basket with Eleanor, and together you climb the path back toward the castle. The river moves behind you, darkening by the moment. The rushes whisper. A torch is lit at the service gate, its flame bending in the wind. Warmth waits somewhere ahead, not much. Perhaps, but enough supper smoke, a place on a bench, bread, pottage, and the close, drowsy murmur of the servants' hall beneath soot-black rafters. The dog trots before you, leaving small wet prints on the stones, and for once he does not look back. He seems to know the way now. You enter the servants' hall with the river still in your hands and twilight clinging to your cloak. The warmth inside is not immediate, but it gathers around you slowly, rising from the hearth, from bodies seated shoulder to shoulder, from bowls of pottage and trenchers darkened with broth. Above, the rafters are black with years of smoke, and the shadows between them look deep enough to store forgotten winters. Rushes cover the stone floor, fresher near the doorway where someone has tried to hide the worst of the mud. They smell of cut grass, damp straw, and the faint sweetness of old herbs scattered among them, lavender, perhaps, or meadowsweet, though no one can quite agree whether strewing herbs truly sweeten a hall or merely encourage everyone to pretend the floor is cleaner than it is. You set the basket near the wall where the folded cloth will wait until after supper. Your arms feel light without it, almost suspiciously light, as if they have forgotten what they are for. You flex your fingers. The mallow grease has softened the cracks a little, and the scent of it mingles with smoke, onions, wool, and wet leather. A place opens for you on a bench beside Eleanor. You sit, and the wood creaks beneath you in a tone that suggests it has heard too many weary bodies to be impressed by yours. A bowl is passed into your hands. Pottage again, thicker now, with barley, turnip, onion, and a small piece of smoked fish hiding near the edge like treasure for the patient. You lean over it and let the steam touch your face. After the day's cold water, it feels almost royal. Around you, the hall murmurs. Servants eat with bent heads and quick hands. A groom in a patched tunic tears bread with his teeth. A kitchen maid rubs her wrists and complains softly of carrying too many platters. Near the hearth, the boy who tended the laundry fire earlier has fallen asleep sitting upright, his spoon still in hand, which seems dangerous but understandable. The brown dog slips beneath the table and settles near your boots. You feel the warm weight of him against your ankle. Someone drops a crust. He accepts it before it hits the floor, proving that miracles still occur, though mostly for dogs. Maud sits farther down the bench with her tally stick beside her bowl. Even at supper, she looks as though she is counting something, perhaps spoons, perhaps sins, perhaps the number of ways linen can disappoint a person before nightfall. She catches your glance and nods once. Again, not praise exactly, but near enough to warm you. Some swear that a nod from Maud in winter is better than a blessing from a cheerful priest in spring. Even now, it is hard to tell whether this is respect, fear, or practical theology. The meal moves slowly. You drink small ale from a wooden cup, cloudy and mild. You break bread and soak it in broth until it softens. The smoked fish is salty, rich, and gone too quickly. A platter of coarse bread passes, then a bowl of boiled greens. Nothing is delicate, yet everything belongs to the hour. Food tastes different when eaten after labour. It carries a quiet dignity, as if each spoonful knows the work it follows. A man near the hearth begins telling the story of the goose at Manor Court, though already it has grown. In his version, the goose not only trampled linen but stared down the reeve, escaped its pen twice, and may have belonged to a woman rumoured to know charms against toothache. Those who tell the tale never fully agree how quickly a goose becomes a villain, but by the time the story reaches the far bench, the bird has nearly become a feathered outlaw. You laugh softly into your cup. Then someone mentions the relic chest from earlier, and the hall quiets just a little. A servant says the bishop's man is coming to inspect the chapel's silver and bones. Another insists the silver case holds the finger of St. Radian, who protected washerwomen from cracked hands. Sabine snorts and says if such a saint exists, he has been careless with his duties. No one can quite agree whether St. Radian is real, local, misnamed, or invented by someone who wanted cracked hands to sound holier. Still, several people glance at their fingers. Near the hearth, beeswax candles burn beside cheaper tallow dips. The beeswax smells faintly honeyed, clean beneath the smoky air, while the tallow gives off a heavier scent. Their flames lean and straighten with every draught from the door. One candle has burned halfway down and spilled wax along its side, reminding you of the half-burned candle that has followed the day from shed to board to memory. Outside, the wind presses against the shutters. You hear it move along the wall in a low, patient breath. The castle settles into evening gates barred, horses fed, kitchen fires banked, the last carts creaking into shelter, somewhere above, in the great hall. Higher voices rise and fall over a later meal, with better bread, finer cups, perhaps spiced wine, perhaps meat carved on trenchers. Down here, you have pottage and smoke and a dog under the table, and honestly, the dog seems less likely to complain about sauce. Eleanor leans close and tells you tomorrow may bring frost. If frost comes, the clean linen must be moved before dawn, or it will stiffen on the line and crack at the folds. Some swear cloth frozen too hard keeps the shape of ghosts. Others say it merely breaks if handled badly. Neither possibility sounds helpful. You nod, too tired to answer much. The hall grows drowsier. The first hunger has passed. People sit back, loosen shoulders, warm hands over cups. A young maid hums the same tune you heard in the laundry shed, the one about the road, the lost glove, the winter bride, and the crow who knows too much. This time, the song seems lower, slower, less like work and more like memory. The words blur at the edges. The crow may be warning someone, or watching, or simply being a crow, which is already suspicious enough. You look toward the cloth basket by the wall. Even after supper, there is work waiting, folding, sorting, checking seams, mending by candlelight. Linen does not sleep just because you wish to, but for now, you let the warmth of the bowl seep into your palms. You let the hall hold you. Smoke gathers under the rafters. Candlelight trembles across faces. Wet cloaks hang near the fire, giving off that deep wool smell that has followed you since before dawn. The abbey bell rings once more, muffled by walls and distance, softer now, like a memory of morning heard from far away. The dog sighs against your boot. You take the last spoonful of pottage, scrape the trencher clean, and sit for one more breath in the smoky comfort of the servants' hall before Maud rises, reaches for the basket, and gently reminds the room that clean cloth still needs hands before night can truly settle. You rise from the bench with the slow reluctance of someone whose bones have briefly mistaken supper for the end of the day. The servants' hall still glows around you, warm in patches, smoky in layers, but Maud has already lifted the basket by the wall, and that means rest has folded itself away for now. You follow her toward the long table near the side hearth, where beeswax candles have been set in iron holders, and the clean linen waits in pale, damp-breathed bundles. The candles burn more sweetly than the tallow dips, giving off that faint honey scent that makes even a work table feel almost gentle. Their light falls golden over the cloth, catching raised seams, worn hems, loose threads, and the tiny shadows inside folded corners. Outside, the dark has settled fully against the shutters. Inside, the night work begins. You take a sheet from the pile and shake it open with Eleanor. It lifts, sighs, and spreads between you like a pale sail in a windless room. Together you fold it once, then again, matching corners carefully. A badly folded sheet creases in storage, Maud says, and a creased sheet offends both the eye and the person who must later smooth it. No one can quite agree whether creases invite bad dreams, but in households like this, neatness often becomes superstition by candlelight. You stack the folded sheets on the table's far end, guest linen together, servants' cloth apart, kitchen towels in their own pile, because even cleaned, they still carry a memory of onions and fish. The chapel cloths lie near Maud, protected from elbows, crumbs, and the dog, who is stretched under the table like a small brown rug with opinions. Annis sits with a needle and thread, mending a long tear near the edge of a guard's shirt. Her stitches are small and steady, moving through cloth with patient skill. You watch her for a moment, then take up a towel with a frayed corner. She shows you how to turn the worn edge inward and catch it down with thread so it will not unravel further. Your first stitches wander like pilgrims in fog. Annis studies them and says they will hold, which is kinder than saying they are beautiful. Some swear that sewing after dark invites mistakes unless a candle is blessed on Candlemas. Others say tired eyes are the real curse. Even now, it is hard to tell whether saints or sleep deserve more blame for crooked hems. The hall quiets while you work. Conversation sinks into murmurs. The cook's boy finally wakes, discovers his spoon still in hand, and looks briefly proud of himself. A maid near the hearth rubs a little charm between finger and thumb, a knotted red thread tied around her wrist, meant to guard against envy, chills, and perhaps kitchen scolding. Medieval charms are ambitious things. They rarely specialize. You lift a fine shirt and find a faint scent still clinging to it beneath ashen river beeswax, smoke, and a trace of sweet herbs. Perhaps it belongs to someone who sleeps in the upper chambers, someone who leaves candles burning too late, someone whose servants know which chest holds the lavender sachets. Cloth remembers quietly. It does not speak in words, but it carries lives in its fibres, a feast, a fever, a muddy ride, a chapel prayer, a cold night beneath wool blankets. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether laundry workers know secrets because they listen, or because garments confess without being asked. You fold the shirt carefully and set it with the finer pieces. Beside it lies a child's small linen shift, patched twice at the hem, washed thin at the elbows. You smooth it with your palm. The cloth is not fine, but it has been cared for. That matters here. A garment may be humble and still beloved. Maud counts with her tally stick, touching each pile. 1 sheet, 2 sheets, 3. Her lips move silently. An iron key hangs at her belt, catching candlelight. When the linen is fully dry, much of it will be locked in chests, because clean cloth is too valuable to be trusted to memory, visitors, or cousins. A gust pushes through a gap near the shutter, and the candle flames bend low. Shadows leap along the rafters. For a moment, the hall seems full of tall, wavering figures. Sabine crosses herself and mutters that draughts after supper carry wandering complaints from the dead. Eleanor says draughts after supper carry only poor carpentry. No one can quite agree, so the shutter is wedged tighter with a scrap of wood, satisfying both theology and building maintenance. You return to the mending. Needle in, thread through, pull gently. The rhythm is smaller than washing, but just as steady. Your body, tired from water and lifting, begins to settle into the softer labour. The linen lies warm under your hands from the fire nearby. Candlelight pools over the table, somewhere beyond the wall. A horse shifts in its stall. Somewhere above, footsteps cross a chamber and fade. Annis tells you that on certain saints' days some households refuse to wash, sew, or cut cloth, fearing bad luck or divine disapproval. Others simply cannot afford to stop. Work and belief, like warp and weft, cross each other constantly. No one lives by one thread alone. You mend a napkin with the torn corner. You fold towels into tight squares. You help stack altar cloth on a clean board, touching it only after wiping your fingers carefully. The chapel linen smells faintly of incense, beeswax, and cold stone, different from all the rest. Even Maud's voice softens around it, though only a little. The dog dreams under the table, paws twitching. Perhaps he chases the accused goose through a meadow of spotless sheets. Perhaps he has finally caught a drop of water. His soft huff makes Eleanor smile. The night deepens, one by one. Workers finish their tasks and drift away towards straw pallets, benches, corners near the hearth, wherever sleep can be borrowed. You remain at the table with a final pile of shirts, the candle lower now, wax gathering at its base like frozen honey. Your hands move slowly but surely. Fold, smooth, stack, mend, fold again. The half-burned candle from earlier is gone now, replaced by this sweeter beeswax light, but you remember its bent side, its tired wick, its small brave flame in the steam. The day has been made of such small things. A bell before dawn, a river stone, ash in a wooden bin, a dog's muddy paws, a goose under judgment, a shirt that will never be fully white, a warm bowl held between cracked hands. At last. Maud covers the folded piles with a clean cloth. The work is not truly finished, because work never is, but it has been brought to a resting place. That is sometimes all a person can ask. The abbey bell sounds through the dark, late and distant. You listen until the note fades into the rafters. Then you lift one final bundle, ready to be carried before frost, and follow Maud toward the colder passage, where night waits with torchlight, stone, and the promise of one more journey before sleep. You step from the servants' hall into the colder passage, and the warmth falls away behind you as though a heavy curtain has dropped. Stone closes in on both sides, damp and faintly shining where torchlight licks along the wall. The bundle in your arms is clean, folded, and wrapped in a cloth cover, but it is still heavy enough to remind you that cleanliness has weight. Maud walks ahead with the iron key at her belt, and Eleanor follows behind with another stack tied in cord. The castle at night is not silent, it only speaks differently. Somewhere in the lower yard, a horse stamps and blows white breath into the dark. A shutter knocks softly in the wind. Far above, someone moves a chair across a chamber floor with the long, scraping sound of a ghost rearranging furniture poorly. From the kitchen passage comes the last sleepy clatter of pots being set aside. You pass beneath an arch and emerge into the service yard. Frost is already forming along the edges of the stones, silvering the mud where footsteps have hardened it into ridges. The air bites your cheeks. Your breath rises before you in pale clouds. Torches burn in iron brackets by the doorway, their flames bending and flaring, smelling of pitch, smoke, and winter. Some swear that frost before midnight means the dawn will come bright and cruel. Others say frost before the final bell only means the laundry will stiffen if you are slow. Even now, it is hard to tell whether weather wisdom is prophecy or complaint dressed nicely. You cross the yard carefully. The clean bundle must go to the linen room near the inner stair, where chests stand against the wall and household cloth is counted before sleep. The door is oak, dark and scarred, banded with iron. Maud unlocks it with a key that turns heavily, as if the lock resents being asked to work at this hour. Inside, the linen room smells of dry wood, lavender, rosemary, old cloth, and a faint trace of cedar shavings. It is cooler than the hall, but protected from the wet. Chests sit in rows, some plain, some carved with simple patterns, each one holding wealth in the form of sheets, napery, towels, veils, and table linen. You help lay the folded cloth on a board while Maud checks it against her tally. 1 sheet, 2 shirts, 4 towels, fine napery wrapped apart, chapel cloth separate. No one can quite agree whether lavender in a linen chest keeps away moths, illness, sorrow, or only stale smells. But the scent rises softly as Maud opens a chest, and for a moment the small room feels calmer than any chapel you've entered today. You place the sheets inside, corners aligned, folds facing outward. Order matters in narrow rooms. It lets people believe the world may still be managed. A faint sound comes from the yard. The brown dog has followed after all and waits beyond the threshold, forbidden from entering by Maud's lifted finger. He sits with noble restraint, though his tail betrays him by sweeping frost from the stone. You carry another bundle from the passage, then another. The route becomes a small night pilgrimage hall warmth. Cold passage, frosted yard, oak door, lavender chest, back again. Your body is tired past complaint now. It moves because the path is clear, because others move with you, because the bell has not yet released the night. On the third trip you pause near the stable. A horse lifts its head over the half door, breath steaming in slow clouds. Its dark eye reflects the torch. For a moment you stand together in the cold, both of you wrapped in the same winter air, both smelling faintly of work. You touch the rough wood of the door and then move on before Maud can notice stillness becoming delay. The abbey bell rings late across the fields. The sound is thin in the frost, sharp at the edges, and it carries farther than it did in rain. It passes over the wall, the bleaching field, the river stones, the road to town, the manor shelter where the goose received judgment, and the abbey wash-house where Brother Oswin hid his ink-stained hands. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether bells belong more to God, to monks, or to tired people who need reminding that the day will eventually end. You follow Maud toward the outer drying shed for the last pieces brought in from the lines. Frost has touched a few edges already, making the linen stiff where moisture remains. You lift one cloth and hear a faint crackle as the fold bends. Eleanor warns you not to force it. Frozen linen can tear if handled roughly, and no one wishes to explain to Maud that frost has defeated common sense. You carry the pieces close to the banked coals, not too near the flame, and hang them over wooden rails where warmth can loosen them. Steam rises faintly, ghost pale in the torchlight. The dog noses the air, disappointed that none of the cloth has become food. A charm hangs above the shed door, a small horseshoe, a twist of red thread, and a dried sprig of rowan. Some swear rowan keeps ill luck from entering a workroom, especially in winter. Others say it keeps birds from nesting in the rafters. You suspect both would be welcome. The final bundle waits in the passage, smaller than the rest. It holds the finest linen shirt, the one faintly scented with beeswax and sweet herbs, now folded smooth. Maud gives it to you herself, and you understand without being told that it must be carried carefully. You take it through the inner yard, past the torch, past the stable breath, toward the stair where a sleepy chamber servant waits to receive it. She's wrapped in a wool shawl, hair loose under her cap, eyes half closed. She takes the shirt and nods gratefully, though perhaps she's thanking the linen more than you. Behind her, the stair climbs into darkness toward upper rooms where fires burn low and people sleep under blankets you may wash tomorrow. The thought almost makes you laugh, but it comes out as a breath. At last. Maud locks the linen room. The key turns. The work of the day is held behind oaken iron. Not done forever, never that, but held until morning. The service yard lies quiet under frost. The crooked cart near the stable has a white rim along its broken wheel. The torches gutter lower, above the wall. The sky has cleared enough to show a few small stars. Your hands ache inside your sleeves, but the ache is softer now, wrapped in weariness. Eleanor presses the last heel of rye bread from the abbey into your palm. You take it without speaking. It is hard, cold, and perfect. You stand for one more moment in the yard, chewing slowly, listening to the winter night breathe around the castle. Somewhere near the gate, the dog circles twice and lies down beside a patch of straw, as if he too has earned a place. Then the final bell sounds, low and far, and you turn toward the linen loft, toward folded sheets, wool blankets, and the deep hush that waits above the workrooms. Your steps are slow now. The stone stair rises before you, and each step takes you farther from torch smoke, frost, and the long wet labour of the day, closer to the dim warmth where sleep will finally find you. You climb the narrow stair toward the linen loft with the last bell still fading behind you, its sound thinning into the cold stones as if the castle itself has swallowed it for warmth. Each step is worn in the middle by feet that came before yours, maids with baskets, boys with blankets, old women with keys, tired workers carrying the endless soft burdens of the house. You trail one hand along the wall, feeling damp grit beneath your fingers, and the other keeps your cloak gathered close. Above, the loft door stands half open. A thin line of amber light spills across the landing, trembling faintly from a small lamp inside. You duck beneath the low lintel and enter. The linen loft is warmer than the stair, though only just. Heat rises from the rooms below and gathers here among folded sheets, wool blankets, drying rails, spare sacks, and bundles of cloth tied with cord. The air smells of lavender, dry rushes, old wood, wool, and the faint clean sharpness left by ash and river water. After the cold yard, it feels like stepping into a quiet chest where the whole day has been folded and put away. You set down your small things, the empty basket, the scrap of cloth, the heel of rye bread wrapped for later, though you know later may become tomorrow. Your arms hang strangely light. The work has ended not with triumph, but with a soft absence, like water settling after a stone sinks. No one can quite agree whether a person sleeps better near clean linen because of the scent, the warmth, or the comfort of knowing the day's labour has taken shape around them. Tonight, you think it may be all three. Eleanor is already spreading a wool blanket over a low pallet stuffed with straw. It rustles softly when she presses it flat. The brown dog has somehow been allowed inside, or has simply achieved entry by methods too subtle for tired people to oppose. He turns twice near the door, sighs, and lies down with his nose tucked under his tail. Even Maud, if she saw him now, might pretend not to. You sit on the edge of the pallet and begin loosening your boots. Mud has dried along the seams, frost crusted near the soles, and one bit of straw clings stubbornly as if it has travelled through half the kingdom with you. Your feet ache when they are freed, but they also seem grateful, which is a complicated feeling for feet to express. The loft settles around you. Below, a door closes. Somewhere, a chain is drawn across a gate. Farther off, the river moves unseen beyond the wall, still carrying away the loosened dirt of the day. You imagine the washing stones under moonlight, the rushes bent with frost, the bleaching field lying pale and empty, the manor shelter quiet after its blanket quarrels and goose justice. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the river remembers what it has washed clean. But tonight it feels as though it does, in its own dark and patient way. You rub your hands once more with the last of the mallow grease. The cracks at your knuckles sting, then soften. The scent is faint now, mixed with wool and lavender. You think of ash sifted before dawn, soapwort roots in the market basket, Brother Oswin's hidden ink-stained fingers, Sabine's red headcloth, Annis's careful stitches, Maud's tally stick, the crooked cartwheel rimmed in frost, the half-burned candle that seemed to travel with you through the day. The candle here is new, small, and steady. Its flame barely moves. It lights the folded linens stacked along the wall, each pile squared and covered, each cloth returned from dirt to order for a little while. Not forever. Nothing stays clean forever. But for tonight, the sheets rest, the towels rest, the shirts rest, even the kitchen cloths, after all they have endured, rest without complaint. Some swear that if you sleep among clean linen on a frost night, your dreams will be lighter. Others say dreams come as they please, like weather, geese, and market prices. Even now, it is hard to tell. You lie down beneath the wool blanket. It is rough against your chin, but warm. Straw shifts beneath you, finding the shape of your body slowly. Your shoulders loosen, your hands uncurl. The day, which once seemed endless, begins to fold itself into memory-cold stone. River mist, wooden tubs, ash water, steam, pottage, rain, bells, candlelight, frost. The dog sighs again near the door. Eleanor whispers good night, though the words are almost lost in the loft's hush. You answer softly. Outside, the castle breathes in its sleep. Smoke thins above the roofs. Horses stand warm in their stalls. Somewhere in the chapel, the doubtful relic rests in its silver case. Saint or chicken or mystery, guarded all the same. In the linen chest below, lavender lies between folded cloths, doing what it can against moths, stale air, and the ordinary sorrow of things wearing out. You close your eyes, and the darkness that comes is not empty. It is full of quiet work completed, of water poured away, of hands that have done enough, of cloth laid smooth and counted, of bells that no longer ask you to rise. The night grows slower now, softer around every edge. The rush of the river becomes a low thread in the distance, steady and dark beneath the walls. The last warmth of the hearth below climbs through the boards and rests lightly against your back. The wool blanket holds you close without hurry, and the straw beneath you makes its small dry sounds whenever you breathe a little deeper. There is nothing more to carry, nothing more to wring, nothing more to scrub from a stubborn seam by candlelight. The castle is only stone and shadow now, softened by sleep. The road to town is quiet. The abbey bells are still. The bleaching field lies under frost and starlight, empty of footsteps, empty of rain, empty of everything but pale grass and the memory of linen. You let your thoughts drift there for a moment, then farther, to the river stones silvered under the moon, to the little shrine by the road, to the market awnings folded into darkness, to the monastery wash-house where the tubs are still, and the ink-stained monk has put away his sleeves. All of it rests. Your hands are warm now, your breathing slows. The small candle lowers, its flame round and gentle, shining on stacked sheets like quiet snow. The dog dreams by the door, one paw twitching once, then stilling. No one asks anything of you, no bell calls. No key turns, no voice says there is another basket waiting. Only the loft remains, dim and close, smelling of lavender, wool, clean cloth, and old wood. And here, in this folded hush above the sleeping household, you are allowed to be still. You've lasted the day. You've followed the water from cold dawn to quiet night. You've carried, washed, mended, warmed your hands, and found your rest. The medieval world fades slowly, not disappearing, but settling around you like another blanket. The torches burn lower, the rafters darken, the river keeps its secret pace. Sleep comes gently now, soft as linen, warm as wool, quiet as snow falling beyond the castle wall.